the Crandall family to allow us this opportunity. We were able to put something together in a week and a half that still kind of shocks me. I'm still kind of amazed that we got here tonight. I want to first off start off with a couple of thank yous to Jen Slonsky, wherever Jen ran off to. There she is. Jen has put in so many hours on this. The programs that you guys have, the tea lights that you have, all of the organization behind the scenes. Jen has been working non-stop to make this event happen tonight. To Diane and Rick Crandall, this is the man behind the dream for the Colorado Freedom Memorial. Here in a minute, he's going to tell us a lot about how this memorial came from a dream to what we're standing in front of here tonight. Miss Crandall, where'd you run off to? She's hiding in the back. When the state said we're not going to issue anybody, no matter where you're at in the state, a permit, we reached out to the Colorado Freedom Memorial Foundation, and Miss Crandall knew exactly who to talk to at the city of Aurora. And it was within 48 hours we had a permit for this event. The city of Aurora gets a big special thanks tonight because they did not charge us for this event. So Miss Crandall, that's a big thank you to all your tireless work on this as well. The city of Aurora, Justin was amazing to work with. They rushed it through. This is normally, from what I'm reading on their website, a 30-day process. We had it in 48 hours because of Justin and Miss Crandall. So the city of Aurora has backed us up on this. And to hold it at any different venue, really after we learned the history and what this stands for, to hold it at any different venue I think would just be unfitting. So the Colorado Freedom Memorial Foundation as a whole, I can't say thank you enough. Not just for allowing us to have this event tonight, but for the memorial. You guys hear the history of this, I think it's going to touch your heart. Also, we've got a couple other folks to recognize. Tyler Heidi was kind enough to take time out of his college schedule at Metro State, where he's studying mechanical engineering, to not only bring us an American flag, but to present it for us and allow us to do our Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem. Thank you to you, Mike. Dan Broken running around here somewhere.
He's probably dancing now.
I would say, he might be doing freedom dance at this point. We found him. You'll see Dan's part here coming up soon. And Dan, I wanted to say a special thank you to all your hard work in this as well. While Jen and I have been inundated with trying to organize this, Dan has held the fort down for the group, organizing the rallies and keeping that going for us. So where we were kind of slacking, Dan ran with the ball and he kept that train right on motion. So we'll get it started off right. First thing we're going to do, obviously it's a little bit different. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then the gift of the iPhone, we're going to do the National Anthem. We wanted to do the Pledge of Allegiance a little bit different tonight. We wanted to bring all the little ones up front, and we wanted to have the little ones lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. How's that sound, guys?
Keep that.
Better?
Yeah. Whenever you're ready, guys, go ahead. Ready? All right. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rick Crandall. Rick Crandall,
Easy done here.
he started it. He started this as a dream, and to hear the history, how this started overseas, and how each one of these pieces actually, each individually thought out and how it works. I was absolutely amazed. The thought process and the emotional connection I was able to make with this. I think once you hear it from the founder's mouth, each and every one of you will be able to make a personal connection to this memorial. So, Rick Crandall, thank you.
Welcome everybody. Sorry for the weather out here. It never rains in Aurora. Never. So thank you for bringing water our way. I've been out here in snow. I've been out here in mud. And we built this memorial this year. We started construction on it in March. We broke ground February 2nd. And remember in April it snowed so bad, and we were trying to get this memorial built so we could dedicate it by Memorial Day weekend. And the snow was so bad out here, and it was so muddy that concrete trucks were actually having to put snow chains on to get through the field to get up here to the site. It was crazy, and then for it to be like this tonight, I'm sorry. But welcome to the memorial, and I would love for you to come back when there aren't tents and all this in the middle of it. The Colorado Freedom Memorial is dedicated to all Colorado veterans killed in action since we became a state. On the far right-hand side, the very first panel, the very first row, are the names of 46 who were killed in the Spanish-American War. Most of those men died of disease, which was not uncommon in the Spanish-American and First World War. The very first Coloradan killed in action you'll find in that row, his name was Fred Springstead. Fred was from Golden, and Fred was a cook. He left Denver, of course, the way they transported to fight then, City Park in downtown became a camp. It became Camp Alva Edison, and there they trained to go fight in the Spanish-American War, and they marched from City Park down to Union Station and boarded trains and went to San Francisco. Fred's fiancée followed him to San Francisco, and the day before he got on the ship to leave, they were married in San Francisco. She would never see him again. He got on the ship like all the rest from the Colorado First. They went to the Philippines, and one of their early nights there, Fred had finished cooking for the night, and he went to the commander and he said, "You know, I didn't come all this way just to cook. I need to be in this fight." So the commander said, "Once you're finished up, go ahead and report to the front." So he reported to the front line. Sometime in the middle of the night, he stood up to ask for instructions, and a sniper killed him. And he was the first from Colorado killed in action. It goes Spanish-American War to World War I to World War II, the greatest loss of life. There are about 5,800 names that are here in front of you. Colorado's World War II losses were a little over 3,600, so most, well over half of the names that are here are represented in World War II. This section here that sits back from the rest of the wall are those that are still missing in action. It was important to us that those missing in action be represented here, but we can't count them yet with those accounted for. So the panel of glass, much like them, is missing from the rest of the wall. This part of the memorial then becomes very chaotic. Christopher Kenton designed this memorial, and his big dream was that this memorial represent the chaos of war. If you've looked at it, you'll notice the names are not in alphabetical order. When you get to this part of the memorial, the conflicts are not in order either. It goes Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Korea, Vietnam. Why the separation of Vietnam? Because in Chris's interpretation, Vietnam separated the nation. And so Vietnam is represented divided here. And then the other conflicts in between. So that's the memorial. Where we're set up is right in front of the names from Iraq and Afghanistan. Those that are so important to what we're remembering tonight. There's 104 names here on section 19. All of them are true heroes from Colorado. To be on this memorial, Colorado had to be your home of record when you entered the service. That's the basic criteria. Tommy Slocum is on this list. Tommy Slocum was the first Coloradan killed in Operation Iraqi Freedom, and you'll find his name if you look close. You'll also find Andrew Rydell. His mom, Sherry, sent me an email earlier tonight that I asked her if I could share with you tonight. She was kind enough to say yes. And I asked her, I didn't ask her anything. You don't have to ask Sherry much. She's glad to share with you what her thoughts are usually. And we were talking about 12 years ago today. And Sherry said, I remember it as if it were yesterday. Andrew and I were sitting in front of the TV and crying together about the horror and devastation we were seeing. Little did I know that that incident would help make my son's decision to become a U.S. Marine and eventually take him to Iraq and then to heaven. Sherry has told us that here at the Colorado Freedom Memorial, we've given her a place to leave her tears. You know, when we brought these panels of glass here, this glass was made for us in Minnesota by a company called Viracon. These names are printed on these glass panels. They're not etched, they're printed. And the panels were delivered to Colorado on April 6th. We met these panels at the Nebraska state line with Patriot Guard and other escorts, and we escorted the glass panels to this site because over half of these names, there are no graves for families to go grieve at. The men of World War II who were shot out of the sky, who were lost at sea. There are many hundreds of these who are buried in American cemeteries around the world. There is no gravesite for a family to go grieve, so families come here to grieve. Brandon Curtin, who was killed in Afghanistan, his father called this his second home now. He comes and sits right on the wall over there in the corner and stares at his son's name and sits here for hours. Every weekend for 2 hours, random times, a retired Marine, former Marine, comes and stands in full dress uniform at attention right in the walkway, right directly in front of the memorial, because he doesn't want these men and women to be alone. Faith Hinckley, whose name you will see here, is the right here, Faith Hinckley. Faith was from Monte Vista. She's the only uniformed female from Colorado killed in action in our history. You'll see other female names, nurses, and on the granite panels at the end, you'll see Barbara's name down there. She was actually the first Coloradan killed in Vietnam. She was a CIA employee that was working at the CIA office in Saigon, and a bomb went off outside of her office window and took her life. She's honored in Pueblo with a memorial there, and she's represented on the granite panel here. So this is our memorial. Tonight, this part becomes most important to us, though, right? These 109 who couldn't have imagined just 12 years ago what life held for them. And for their families who tonight are at home, praying and grieving still the loss of these individuals. So I hope you'll come back often and spend some time with them and be with them. Our flags are always at half-staff here. We feel like because we've brought so many of these men and women back home by name, if no other way, that this actually has become quite a memorial site, and if you will, a bit of a final resting place for many of them. So our flags, we're one of 5 sites in America where flags are always at half-staff. And we're proud of that fact and what it represents. So welcome. I'm sorry the conditions aren't a little better for tonight, but you can imagine the conditions that all of these men and women fought in and suffered through and died in, and we could put up with a little bit tonight, right? I'd love to have you back anytime. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for letting us be a part of this.
Will you quickly also explain the purpose of the water? That
Yeah.
one made a real personal connection to myself and the veteran. I'm sure several of our other veterans will see that as well.
2 unique things that are way better to see when it's light out here. One is you notice this little channel of water that's in front of the memorial. It flows to the middle and then it recycles to the end and it continues to flow. This water is representative of the fact that each of these conflicts is separated from Colorado by a body of water. World War I and World War II fought in Europe and in the South Pacific, right? Bodies of water, Iraq and Afghanistan, Vietnam, all of them. So this water represents still that separation from us and them. In the center, you may have noticed when it was lighter, you may still see those stainless steel lines. When Chris designed the memorial, his first step was to create a mapping sequence. Loosely, if you're a cartographer, you lock this up and throw the key away, but loosely, if you followed those lines, they would take you to places of war where Coloradans have lost their lives. Additionally, though, more importantly to us, they return those bodies back here to this place. So that's what those lines represent in the middle. Finally, you'll notice the peaks on top of the memorial. My only contribution to the design, I had this romantic notion that the last thing these men and women saw were those beautiful mountains you can usually see right over there to the west. That was the last thing they saw before they left their home state. And we wanted that reflected in the monument so you can see the peaks on the monument that represent that. A lot of symbolism to it, a lot of special meaning to it. The panels fall back and forth, some places very severe, meant to reflect men falling in action, symbolizing that all of these fell and gave their life. And then the final thing, now that it's night, you'll notice that it is lit, but only up to a point. A lot of families have told us that they really appreciate that means of lighting because it's as if they're close enough to touch, but then they disappear from sight, right? It's almost as if they're lifted up into the heavens. And so, pretty cool place. All right, come see us again when it's dry. And yeah, and so, but it was, yeah, that's a great question. How did we end up here? And it was purely, it was, call it what you will, it was pretty much a miracle. We had been working with the city on a different location over at Alameda and Airport. There's 146-acre empty space out there that the city someday will build a park on. We were going to be located there, and when we finally raised enough money to build the memorial, we were ready to build, but the city had no idea when they were going to build that park. And so we were a little frustrated, we weren't sure what to do, and by happenstance, the city was finishing this park here by the Beck Recreation Center there, and this 4.5-acre parcel here, they had no idea what they were going to do with. And the original plan of our memorial fit in this, like it was intended to be here all along. So, you know, I'm not often really a new agey kind of guy, but you come out here sometime at night at sunset and sit here by yourself and you can't help but feel there's something special about this place. I will tell you, because the first time it happened, I thought the angels were coming to get me. At 4:30, at 10 o'clock at night, they play taps at Buckley at the end of the day. And when you're sitting here at night in the dark by yourself and taps starts playing, you really think they're coming to take you the first time you hear it. Uh-oh, this is it. But also at 4:30 in the afternoon every day, they play the Star Spangled Banner. 7:30 in the morning and 4:30 in the afternoon. It carries across 6th Avenue to this site so beautifully. That it really is like this is just where it always should have been. All right.
Those missing, those are from all the conflicts.
Yeah, the government gets to a point eventually where they take people off of the missing in action and just go ahead and classify them as killed. In 1954, they did that with all the remaining World War II missing in action. So there are 91 there now. They are predominantly Korean Vietnam. And at some point they'll clear the Korean list and then we'll make changes. Good? All right. Thank you, guys.
So now you can kind of see why we wanted to have this night at such a special location.
And do it again here next year when it's dry. Okay?
We're going to take you up.
All right, you got to do it.
You can see where we can, each one of us living here can make a personal connection to something on this one. We don't have, even if you don't know somebody whose name is up there, we can all imagine one of our biggest fears being the last thing you ever saw on this stage with those mountains. For those of you that have served, most of you have seen that body of water. You remember sitting in that wretched government-issued plane flying over a solid blue abyss and never knowing if you were going to come back across it. It was a never-ending flight. When I heard the history of this, and I heard how 13 years ago this dream started overseas. Mr. Crandall does a radio show, and his dream started overseas. Wondering how many people over there died and never got remembered here. And when you bring that home, I couldn't think of a better place to come together tonight as Colorados. to remember a tragic night in American history and somewhere with our fellow Coloradans that have paid the ultimate price for freedom. The ultimate price for the ability for us to gather here tonight. And when you think about this panel right here, this panel would not have been today if it had not been for the tragic events of 9/11/2001. This is a direct impact on every one of us. That day, we can all remember exactly what we were doing. Every one of us knows exactly where we were at. We remember the emotions. These families that are related to these names and this, all they have is pictures and memories at this point. When I met the Crandalls here for the first time, and I had read the history of the memorial, it wasn't until I met them here and they told me about this panel. It was an instantaneous, easy decision. That's where we're going to stand. We're going to stand with our fellow Coloradans who paid that price for our freedom. I do definitely encourage you to come back here today. This is an amazing place during the day. To take the time to go around and look at the panels and use the sitting wall, I highly encourage that. This memorial is privately funded. That was something that shocked me. In today's world, nothing's privately funded anymore. All of us are funding plenty of other things. And this memorial is privately funded. Like there's no government money coming to this. And the taxpayers aren't bringing you a check every month, are they? The information I found out about them having to be required to have terrorism insurance shocked me.
One of only 2 policies in the state.
You have to have terrorism insurance at a memorial that's partly caused by terrorism. I mean, so if you have the ability, we highly encourage you. On the programs that we printed up, I don't know if they've all got dispersed due to the weather or not, but see Jen, she has tons of them. There's the website's there. If you have the ability to honor our fallen brothers and sisters, please feel free to do so, so that our children and our children's children can come to this memorial long after we have passed them. So now I'm going to get into why we're here tonight. This is the part that I was smart enough to draft on paper because of the emotional connections that I have. I might stumble a little bit, so you may have to bear with me a little bit. First off, let me saying thank you to each and every one of you for coming out tonight to remember such a tragic day in American history. By you taking the time to be here tonight, you are silently raising your voice to the heavens that the lives lost on September 11, 2001 and 2012 have not and will not be forgotten. These men and women who we lost on this date were just living as Americans, much like each and every one of us started our day today. Waking up in the morning to the sound of that annoying alarm clock, grabbing our first cup of coffee and heading off to work or school, settling in for yet another day of the proverbial grind. None of these men and women knew that on this date America would forever be changed. Every one of us can remember exactly where we were at when we first watched or learned of the attacks of the World Trade Center towers. I remember being active duty in the United States Air Force stationed at F.E. Warren Air Force Base. It was just another typical training day. I was complaining about having to go outside and do exercise. It was hot. I thought that was enough to complain about. From down the hall, I heard a horror-filled yell. "Hey guys, get in here!" Being in the unit that I was in, that typically meant somebody had a prank up their sleeve. We didn't fall for it at first. A few seconds later, the same yell. "Hey, get in here now!" This time, the voice did not indicate that it was a prank. We all took off running down the hallway into a conference room. 13 grown men stood around a very small TV. It was there as I watched Tower 1 burn. My heart sank to the floor in pure fear. How could anybody do this unthinkable act on American soil? Who would want to attack us? We're America. This doesn't happen here. I remember trying to deal with the emotions as watching one tower be completely disrupted in its normal day-to-day operations, worrying about the people inside of the tower and questioning what was the next step. A few minutes later, I remember I watched the second plane hit the North Tower. At that point, confusion, hurt, the thought of tragedy all turned to anger. I looked over at my captain, and I remember his face as he looked at me in pure fear. A tear rolled down his cheek, and he said to me, "Get ready, we're going to war." Being 18 years old and hearing these words uttered was the scariest moment of my life. I literally wanted to fall to my knees and cry. But I knew that we could not allow these American lives that were just tragically lost to be defended by a man that was crying on his knees. Never could I imagine that 11 years later, after this terrible event, America would be yet again reminded of what it feels like to lose more American life. September 11th, 2012, we were reminded how fragile life is and how different each country is in this world. On that day, this country lost 4 more lives in the attacks of the U.S. Embassy in Benghazi. 4 men paid the ultimate sacrifice for freedom while defending the embassy that was being attacked by over 100 assailants. When we sit back and think about, we remember watching the towers fall. We remember holding our loved ones close. We remember watching the entire city of New York shut down under Apollo rumble. And 11 years later, 4 more Americans were left to fight a battle that was not theirs. Tonight, we not only gather to remember the victims of the 9/11 attacks in 2001, we gather here at this location to remember the 4 lives lost in Benghazi 1 year ago today. At this time, we're going to ask Dan Groken to lead us in prayer. And as Dan comes forward, I want to ask each and every one of you to take a second. Think about where you were September 11th, 2001. What were you doing? You were just living your lives as Americans. We were leading our everyday life. I was complaining about exercising. And then think about, where were you at a year ago? Most of us had to find out the hard way by doing an internet search to find out that 4 men had lost their lives in Benghazi. 2 Navy SEALs, a U.S. ambassador, and an information officer lost their lives 1 year ago today. Think about where you were at a year ago today. Each one of these events has tragically changed the course of American history and deeply touched each and every one of us as Americans.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing these patriots together tonight. September 11th, 2001 will forever be etched in our memories. It was a day, Lord, in which many of our children left us and came home to you. September 11th, 2012 also saw 4 Americans torn, with unexplainable violence, saw in Benghazi. We stand here tonight at the Colorado Freedom Memorial among thousands who put on military uniform to fight for our freedom, liberty, and the rights you bestowed upon us, Lord. September 11th, 2001, not one of those lost that day had a military uniform on. As we stand here tonight in this country of the free, let us take a breath and a moment given by you, Lord, for them. May another day like this never come upon us. We pray always in the glorious name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
On September 11th, 2001, the day started like any other. At 8:45 a.m., the history books were forever changed. Flight 11 slammed into the south tower of the World Trade Center buildings. At 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 slammed into the north tower of the World Trade Center buildings. Mass chaos and confusion erupted all across the city of New York. At 9:43 a.m., CNN shows us that Flight 77 crashes into the Pentagon. At 10:05 a.m., we all watched in horror as the South Tower collapsed. I'm sure there's nobody here that will ever forget that image. At 10:10 a.m., an image that most of us didn't even get to see, a portion of the Pentagon collapsed. At 10:10 a.m. also, we are informed that Flight 93 crashes in Pennsylvania, cut short of its intended target of the Capitol. It was taken over by the passengers, who uttered the saying that we will never forget. Let's roll. These were what I consider true American patriots. They died fighting terrorists. They died fighting the men that were trying to harm us. Their patriotism took them to their grave, and they never once looked back. A plane taken over by hijackers with a box cutter. And these men stood up and said, "Let's roll." And they refused to go down without a fight. At 10:28 a.m., the north tower of the World Trade Center buildings collapsed. Instantaneously, without us even realizing what exactly the totals would be yet. 2,996 lives were lost. Of those 2,996 lives that were lost, 343 of the New York's finest firefighters died while trying to get to these victims. Thousands of family members were left with a personal loss. Millions of Americans were left hurt, confused, torn, and angry. A city was left under rubble. America was left scarred and bruised. Lady Liberty was left weeping. Every American at that moment fought through the emotions. Each one of us asked why. How could this happen here? We never received those answers. More than 90 countries lost citizens in the 2001 attacks when the World Trade Centers collapsed.
Yeah.
The youngest victim just 2.5 years old. These are startling pieces of information that none of us can ever forget. Each one of us has seen the pictures on the internet. We've seen the videos on YouTube. We've watched CNN, MSNBC play the videos one day a year and just remind us over and over and over again how tragic that day truly was in American history. At this time, I would ask each and every one of you to join me in a moment of silence for the victims of the September 11, 2001 attacks. And hold your candles high. Let's let these victims of this tragic day know they are not forgotten. No man's loss is a complete goner until he is forgotten. We will not forget. this time, I ask each and every one of you, take a personal second. Dig deep into your hearts. Most of us know somebody that was affected by this tragedy. Most of us have come across somebody down the line that we knew. Last night, Jen and I found out a member of our group lost a brother in one of the trade centers. We had no idea until last night. This tragedy affected more than just New York City. More than just the Pentagon. And more than just a downed aircraft in Pennsylvania. If you search on the internet how many people's lives were affected by those attacks, they throw a number of 30,000 on it. But does that number account for each and every one of you folks standing here tonight? That number strictly accounts for the family members. The aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the moms, and the dads that were all personally affected. It totals 30,000. That's a number that we didn't hear on the news. We heard the 2,996. We heard that within days. It took 8 months for the 30,000 to come out. On September 11th, 2012, America again came under attack. Many media outlets did not provide much attention to these lives that were lost, leaving their families to grieve alone. Tonight we remember the 4 brave men that lost their lives in the terrible attacks on the embassy mission in Benghazi. We give these 4 men the time they deserve from all Americans. These men are not gone until they are forgotten. These men gave their tomorrow for our today. On September 11th, 2012, at 9:40 p.m., gunfire erupted from the outer perimeter of the walls of the embassy. Assailants started throwing Molotov cocktails and setting fires to all of the walls surrounding the building. At 10 p.m., the attackers breached the walls of the embassy. The only thing separating these 4 men from death was literally one 2-inch thick door. Ambassador Chris Stevens calls the Deputy Mission Chief Commander Gregory Hicks at the embassy in Tripoli and says, "Greg, we're under attack." 2 a.m. on September 12th, 2012. The bodies of Ambassador Stevens and Sean Smith are pulled from the embassy by the assailants. For the next 2 hours, Navy SEAL Glenn Doherty and Navy SEAL Tyrone Woods held back hundreds of assailants until heavy mortar fire finally concentrated on their location and ended their lives. At 4 a.m. on the 12th, a U.S. military drone confirmed that both Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty were killed in action. At 10 a.m. on September 12th, 2012, the bodies of Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Glenn Doherty, and Tyrone Woods were loaded on the very last plane leaving Benghazi. Tonight, on this sacred ground, thousands of miles from where these men laid their life on the line, we will honor these men. Tonight, we will give these men the respect and remembrance that they deserved while they fought for freedom and upheld everything that our United States flag stands for. After I read each one of the men's names, I ask you to respond with, "We will remember." By doing this, we will raise our voice in unity so that the heavens will hear. No matter what the history books read, no matter what the media says, these men were not forgotten. Ambassador Christopher Stevens.
We will remember.
Chief Information Officer Sean Smith.
We will remember.
Petty Officer First Class Glenn Doherty.
We will remember.
Senior Chief Petty Officer Tyrone Woods.
We will remember.
These men died defending and serving fellow Americans. And tonight we offer a silent voice of sorrow and praise for the lives that they led. America would not be the country it is today without men as brave as these four who paid the ultimate price for freedom and for America. Please join me in a moment of silence for the four brave souls that were lost in the horrific attacks at the embassy mission of Benghazi on September 11th, 2012. As we come to the end of the tonight, it might be a good thing that Mother Nature interjected. Some of the music that was going to correspond with some of the speaking, I'm pretty sure we could have put as much tears on the ground as she is putting right now. I want to challenge you. America wants to challenge you. After the attacks on 2001, the American spirit was re-energized in a way we've never seen before. You couldn't walk 2 feet without seeing an American flag. Americans were shaking American hands. There was no Republicans, there was no Democrats. There was no Islam, there was no Christian. Everybody remembered one thing. This happened to America. We as Americans suffered. 90 countries lost lives in 2001. 2012, we lost 4 lives for this one. 2012, we did not see that same American spirit. For months after the 2001 attacks, you couldn't pass a front yard without an American flag flying proudly. If you walked by a veteran, you shook their hand and said thank you. When you saw your first responders, your police, the paramedics, your firefighters, every one of us walked up to them and thanked them for the courage and the bravery that they demonstrate day in and day out for little pay, simply to be there when we need them. These lives are not lost as long as they are not forgotten. I challenge each and every one of you to bring this American spirit back. Tonight we are reminded simply of an event that we already watched happen once. Heaven forbid that we ever watch this happen again. I challenge you. The 2,996 names from September 11, 2001 have now just hit an alarming number of 3,000 with the 4 names added to it from September 11th, 2012. Let this number never leave your head. When we are down on ourselves, when we are upset with our life, when we are searching for meaning, let us remember that 3,000 Americans don't get to have any of those pleasures anymore. Let's bring back that American spirit. Let's fly those American flags each and every day. Each and every one of these lives that were lost lived under that flag. Whether they were born under that flag, they died under that flag. So each and every day that we show this flag, we not only honor America, but we honor their memory. I will leave you on a closing thought. It's a lot easier for us as Americans to walk away from pressure and walk away from the discussion of why we love our country. This comment especially fits the ladies tonight. Every precious diamond you've seen in your life started with a lump of coal. The lump of coal is put under extreme pressure, and it turns into the stone that every one of us values so much. Don't succumb to this pressure. Fly your flags proudly and honor each and every one of these 3,000 members' lives. I want to ask a quick moment of your time, then I'll let you all go and you can finally get out of this ring. I knew I should not have gone playing in the mud the other day. I knew Mother Nature was going to get back at me. I want to say a special thanks to somebody that didn't get to exuberate his amazing skills tonight, but he was here and he was ready to go to action and show us not only that there's another American that was here for the right reason for tonight, but he was willing to go that extra mile to make sure this event was that much more special. Mr. Phil Ellis, he provided all the sound equipment. He has the playlist ready to go. We're going to call the power company. We're going to yell at him. But he took time out of his day. He graciously drove over here from Thornton. Loaded all this up, brought it all over here, unpacked it. Now we get to pack it back up in the rain. And he would not charge us for this. So a special thank you for his dedication to this. For those of you that don't know, DJ Phil, as he goes by, runs Rocky Mountain Mobile DJ. And I can tell you that I haven't known Phil but just a matter of a handful of days. But I have known Dan for quite some time. And if Dan tells me that that is a man that has earned his respect and that you can trust, I'm good with that. And Dan has conveyed to me, you cannot go wrong by using this man at your events. He does weddings, dances, pretty much anything that you need something to make it a little bit better. Right. Apparently Mother Nature is that caveat. So, in the future, as you hold your gatherings, maybe consider giving DJ Phil a look up. His information is on our program as well as I am proud and honored to say he is a member of the Denver group. So you're keeping your money in the group. That's how much of a supporter we have here, folks. Again, a special thanks to the Colorado Freedom Memorial Foundation. Yes. Tonight, it did not go as planned, but we could not think of a better place to hold this event for each and every one of us to make that personal connection. Again, the city of Aurora, and by city of Aurora, I'm really pointing at Miss Diane Crandall. because she handled the city. All I had to do was fill out the paperwork and return it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again to Tyler.
Sorry about the power.
It made it a family feeling. We got to huddle up a little closer. Thank you to Tyler for taking time out and to bring our nation's colors to us. We greatly appreciate your time. And I want to say thank you to you folks. Tonight I got to stand in an environment with many of you that I have never in my life thought I would stand in. Little did I know that I would stand on an overpass in a downpour and have so much fun as I did with you, this group of patriots. So thank you to you. It has been refreshing to me in the last 48 hours to see what has unfolded in American history. We all watched the major events of last night. This morning, we got to start our journey actually right here in this park. We were able to cheer on the Colorado bikers that were riding for freedom today that could not make the 2 million ride to DC. So we made a full circle today.
Yeah, waved at him twice.
Chased them down.
I did.
Today I got to be a part of the firefighter stair climb. And I encourage any of you next year that can make that to go see this. The sea of firefighters that are there at our beck and call, that are dedicated to this day just as much as you are, is amazing. Firefighters with 150 pounds worth of gear on their back refused to stop walking those stairs. Refused. I watched a gentleman standing right next to me. This gentleman carried a K-12 saw, an axe, and his air pack. That totals about 110 pounds worth of gear. I watched him stumble. And I asked him, "Are you okay? Do you need me to help you out?" He said, "No. Those firefighters in New York didn't get the help that I'm going to get." He picked himself up and he kept going. If you get an opportunity next year to witness that, I highly encourage you to see it. It will touch your heart in ways that you can't imagine. The patriotism that I've seen from you folks, the love for this country that I've seen from you folks, and the friendship that I have watched develop amongst each and every one of us is unsurpassed. I know that those 3,000 victims are upstairs right now looking down at us smiling, knowing they have not been forgotten. Thank you for bearing weather, improv, and I again thank you for your time for coming out to work. Yes, ma'am.
The motorcycles that watched DC, they said there was more than 1 million of them dated. And those guys rode with a name of a victim from the towers from 9/11/2001. They each carried a name with them as they rode through the city.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this event has now turned into a yearly event.
I think so.
I believe I remember seeing a post from Belinda that every year from now on 2 million motorcycles will converge on this.
Wow.
Real briefly, Jeremy.
Yes,
if
sir.
anybody is not familiar with them, turn your radio station to 1430 AM, the AM dial in the early morning. Rick Crandall is a DJ there, and for a treat for your kids, 6 o'clock in the evening, when radio was, the old radio style shows where you had to use your imagination to hear what was going on. It's amazing to hear some of the old style radio stations that maybe your grandparents or your parents listened to. Those old, the Bickersons, The Shadow. Yeah, I mean, amazing radio station, 1430 on the AM dial.
They were a little bit before my time.
Yeah, well,
the other day I tuned in, and I was actually, I was very impressed with the music, and I found myself listening to it for like 2 hours. Wow. It's a definite change from the stuff that I hear on the radio today. So again, thank you for coming out. Thank you for showing enough compassion and love for this day to stand in this weather. To stand on an overpass until you were soaked down to your toes and then come stand here. You have shown me, without a doubt, that there is hope for America to always remember what freedom was about.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
God bless you.
Thanks for putting it
We'll
together.
see you out at Overpass.
All right. Thank you. You bet. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for coming out.